Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Battle Buddy podcast. Today, we're going to talk about, some spicy stuff. No pun intended. I have a guy who started a spice company, and we're going to talk a little bit about business. We're going to talk a little bit about a transition out of the military. So, if you're interested in business and how to start a business and talking about, taking this idea and turn it into something, maybe it's a hobby, maybe it's an idea that's in the back of your head, pay attention. If you're looking to transition out of the military or you're going through the transition process, you definitely want to listen for that. So, without further ado, let's jump into it.
Welcome to the Battle Buddy Podcast with Keith McKeever.
So, welcome to the show, Bill. Glad to have you here.
Thanks, Keith.
So, Bill, you are, like I said, you're the spice guy. You're the founder of Corspice. But before we get into that, I got that scrolling across there. It'll be all in the show notes for people too. But tell us a little bit about your military background and your story.
Kind of needed a change of all kinds of scenery. Was also kind of told I needed a change of scenery. So the doorbell rang. One of the neighbors who had been gone for a while, I didn't even know he was in the Marine Corps, just happened to be there. And I asked him where he's been, and he said he joined the Corps and he was back on recruiter's assistance. And he just gave me like a 5-minute spiel about the Marine Corps, and it wasn't even intended to be him recruiting me. But the first thing out of my mouth after that little spiel was, how do I sign up and can we leave tomorrow?
Oh,
and
he
was kind of taken
just
aback.
Here, right?
Oh, no, he was like, what do you, he was just like, no. What do you mean? And I'm like, no, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here now. So long story short was within maybe 60 days, me and a friend of mine were supposed to do the buddy program. I was down at MEPS signing and MEPS. SEPS is the last place you go to. So while I was down there, he was at the recruiter's office and they called me and had some master sergeant come track me down and put me on the horn because he backed out. So I said, well, I'm still going. So I went in open contract because I wanted to be a grunt, carry a pack and shoot stuff. And they said, that's the easiest way. Grunt's full, but right now you get in, no problem. Going open contract, it's pretty much guaranteed grunt. So that's what I did. And sure enough, when at 2.5 months into boot camp, they start rattling off what everybody's MOSs are and everything else. They're like, who's the smart MF? Because he got aviation. He's going to fix helicopters. And of course, they said my name, and I'm still not paying attention because I'm like, does not compute. Those two do not go together. Sure enough,
you're thinking it's like, no way, it's me, the smart guy, right?
Yeah, well, not being the smart guy, just like I was flat out told by everybody I'd be guaranteed grunt if I went open contract. So go open contract and wind up in aviation. My buddy that wanted to do the buddy program, he wanted aviation. So when I get out of boot, come back on recruiter's assistance because the guy across the street hooked me up on that straight out. So I got straight out of boot, got 30 days recruiter's assistance, which worked out great because I was home without having to take leave for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So, and then reported to duty station like I think the 31st or 1st of the year or something like that. So that part kind of, but whatever. Still was pretty good. Nothing fit after that 30 days though, because you're home pigging out on Turkey Day and Thanksgiving and drinking a lot of beer but they get back to Memphis and they whip you back in shape right away. So
it's understandable after all that physical activity and slimming down and being put into a lean mean machine and go home to mom's cooking and beer, right?
Oh, it was the opposite for me because I got put on double rats.
Oh, okay.
I went in at like 165 and within 2 weeks I was down to 145.
Gotcha. Wow. So they're trying to fatten you up, huh?
Oh yeah. So I graduated boot 187.
Man. Yes, I had the
and I was always hungry.
I was the guy I had to watch going through, I had to look over my shoulder and I was like, yeah, I definitely can't grab that cookie, because I am going to, the eyeballs are going to be on.
You guys had cookies is pretty nice.
Oh, yeah, like, no, like, nobody could grab the cookies, like, but, they kinda laid them out there, like, to entice somebody to grab them, so that
Oh,
the
yeah,
drill
yeah, yeah.
instructors would just like, they're waiting for somebody to just even look at the cookies. Yeah,
It's
they
the
were probably
donut.
like 3-week-old cookies. I mean, they're probably stale as hell, but yeah.
Yeah, but they would have been delicious during boot.
Oh, yeah, I mean, shoot, yeah. If you would have let us break in there in the middle of the night, I mean, we would have just gobbled them all up. But
Oh, yeah, yeah.
wouldn't have cared if there was a layer of mold on it or not. Nobody
I
would
think there
care.
was 2 times in boot where the chow hall had chocolate milk, and that was just like I think everybody drank so much of it, most of us puked in our afternoon run.
I definitely don't remember. I don't remember drinking any milk or chocolate milk. I do remember it was like endless amounts of water, and of course they had Gatorade, Powerade, something like that. But I mean, you get a little bit of that, but of course I was the kind of guy that I had to cut some weight before I joined, so I was kind of very cautious of it going in. So yeah, I had to make sure I tried to get the vegetables on the plate. Um, Try not to get the cheeseburger. Of course, I was Air Force. I don't know how it was in the Corps, but once you get your tray and then you turn, you got the snake pit right there. So you're gonna have to walk past all the drill instructors. So you better not be the chubby guy who's trying to cut weight and have a cheeseburger on your plate. You better have the lean meats and the vegetables, because you are going to
Right?
get shit. I mean, it's not going to be pretty. So yeah, needless to say, I dropped a little bit of weight. I think I dropped like 15, 20 pounds or so when I was in. But
It's not bad.
that's but I did go in when I went in. I kind of went in kind of very similar thing. I went in pretty quick. I talked to a recruiter, I think right around Valentine's Day, and I was in boot camp in early April. So I was kind of quick turnaround like you were. I was kind of like, sure, why not? Yeah, let's do it. I got nothing
Yeah, I
else to
wound
do.
up doing my 19th birthday. So, of course, they sent cookies and crap and
Oh
whatever else.
no.
And so then, while everybody else is eating them, you got to sit there and make a puddle of sweat. So,
I luckily I missed my I had turned 21 right before I joined. Which kind of sucked,
oh, you were the old guy in the platoon.
I was kind of the old guy. So luckily I had my 21st birthday and I had about a week and a half to sober up before boot camp. So um but I'll tell you what, going into tech school after that at Lackland, uh I don't know why they put the security forces tech school right next to the bowling alley. And you know, they had a they had like a dance hall, like they had a place for tech schoolers to go, right? They give you a wristband. You could go in there on the weekends. You could have 3 drinks maximum, right? The ID, that's all you could get was 3 drinks. Trying to control the drinking. But they had no such controls at the bowling alley next door where you could just go get a pitcher of beer. Obviously, you know where I started my weekends off.
Well, of course.
Yep. It was, I would finish off that pitcher of beer, then go next door and get my wristband. So it
Right?
made those the dance club nights a little bit more fun and entertaining because 3 drinks wasn't enough when you're 21 years old. So at this point in time in my life, that would be enough. That would be perfectly fine. But back then, not enough. So, but anyway, so aviation mechanic, huh?
Yeah, I wound up as 53 helicopter mechanic, wound up being a crew chief, plane captain, um, door gunner stuff, all the cool stuff, the cool kids got to do. So in the end, it was really great. But, initially I was just like, I don't want to do this. So,
Yeah. A little different when you're
I
looking at,
guess
holding an M16 and you end up holding a wrench, right?
well, not just that, it was, we were always shorthanded. So it was not uncommon for 65 to 75, 80-hour weeks and go 5, 6 weeks without a day off. And they'd say you'd get a 72, which would turn into a 48, which would turn into a 24, which would, just show up tomorrow. So that was pretty regular for all of us.
Yeah,
And
that
then
doesn't really help.
we always had, you'd have hair like this because you're in you're in aviation, but all the grunts that see you without a helmet on are like, man, I want my hair long. And you're like, the only reason why my hair is long is because I leave at 4 a.m. and I don't get back till 6 p.m.
Yeah, unless the barber wants to come out here on the flight line and cut it.
Yeah.
while I'm turning the
So
wrench.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that was, every now and again you'd come back from a flight midday or something, and Gunny'd be standing there going, "Get your ass to the barber now." But it's chow time. Too bad. You're getting a haircut today.
Yeah. Choose, right?
I even had my one Gunny buy me a comb because when I would take off my helmet, I didn't give a shit what my hair looked like, and it would just be crazy, all sweaty and crazy. And he's like, "No, you need to comb that." And of course, I said this was my comb, and he said, "No." So he went and got me a little pocket comb for my flight suit. And I had to have it with me all the time. So
Wow. Yeah, I never had that problem. My hair started going when I was 25, so it was not that hard for me to keep mine kind of short. But yeah, it's that kind of tempo that must have been difficult. Keep
well, getting
to want to
out.
stay in.
Yeah, once I got out was when I started having massive anxiety attacks. Didn't have them when I was in. Had them when I got out for about a year and a half before I learned how to control them. And didn't have any health insurance, and I didn't know I could go to the VA. Blah blah blah. I sat in a little corner in the bookstore in the mall, scared to death, reading up on it. Once I found out what they were, because you assume you're having a heart attack, but the nurse tells you you're not having a heart attack because you're talking to me. You're just having an anxiety attack. Go lay down, listen to some classical music, and try and relax. Yeah, easier said than done when you're riding that anxiety attack for 8, 10, 12, 14 hours straight. So long story short was found out that it was from having a high stress environment to having zero stress, because I didn't have to worry about bills. I didn't have to worry about food. I didn't have to worry about shot at. I didn't worry about crashing. I didn't have to get yelled at. Didn't have to wake up in the morning, and you can't function because you're missing all of that high stress. So wound up finding jobs that, you can just work 60, 70, 80-hour weeks at. And it took probably 15 years before I could work a 40, 50-hour week and feel normal. So.
Wow. So
Whole,
that's so. At what point did you? With the anxiety attacks, like, I mean, how long after, or how long was that going on then before you went to the doctor? Or realized that what it was. Like, how did you deal with that until that point?
well, I tried drinking, tried getting high. I mean, you named it, just trying to figure out something's wrong. But, you have no idea, because 2 months ago, you didn't feel like this, and nothing's really changed. That in your head, nothing's changed. Right. But
Right.
all of that stuff, all of that camaraderie, just having to work all the time, live with the guy, sleep there. I mean, you'd be stuck on a plane for 5-10 days, and you were supposed to be on a 3-hour flight. So, our flight, our helmet bags always had tuna fish cans, peanut butter crackers, smokes, couple pairs of skivvies, and maybe a t-shirt and some socks. And then you carried your helmet in your other hand. And sometimes pilots would think that's funny, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna be your best friend when we're stuck in the field for 5 weeks. So
Yep. And that extra pay you get as an officer, you're going to be coughing that up for some snacks, right?
oh yeah, yeah. And then like our flight suits were stamped by you guys unserviceable. So we were wearing your old shit, and we thought it was great because they didn't have holes in them. So to us, they were brand new.
That sounds about like the most Air Force, Marine Corps kind of thing right there.
Yeah.
Not
We
up to
actually,
Air Force standards, and like, hey, hey, you got clothes, right?
yeah, these things have been washed 10 times. So they're 10% faded. They have to go.
Yeah. And you're thinking, hey, at least I'm not flying naked.
Yeah. I mean, that was pretty much it. We were happy when we had enough safety wire to put our boots back together.
Ah, there you go. Yeah. So, what other issues, if any, did you have throughout the transition process, other than anxiety issues and kind of dealing with that?
Well, just trying to sort out, like, I don't know for Air Force guys or whatever, but I know 90% of the Corps, when they get out, enlisted guys specifically, you have this weird, you don't belong, you're not doing enough, nobody cares. Where the fuck did everybody go? Pardon me.
No, it's fine. We've
You
all
feel
heard
like
it.
you're just floundering around, just trying to figure shit out. And like until just recently, a few years ago, I started going to the VFW and the VA centers and things like that. And that's like why you don't know about that when we got out back in the 90s or the late 80s, early 90s. They flat out would tell you if you sign this piece of paper, you get no benefits. You can't come back to us for nothing, blah, blah, blah. They don't tell you about the VFW. They don't tell you about the VA. They tell you nothing. And they just send you out into the world. And so you're out there alone. I don't even know now if they're telling guys that, but I've talked to the VFW reps at every place I've been and said, are you guys hitting SEPs? And letting the guys know, because once a week there's a group heading out, or even daily. Why aren't we there telling them to come find us, even if it's not our local guys? But the VFW as a whole should be doing that for every branch at every SEP center, because at least right away, you got someplace to go and talk.
Yeah, no. Every branch calls it a little something different, but I believe it's pretty much a uniform amount of training. Transition assistance program, TAPS, something like that. But it's all ran by the Department of Labor. And a lot of it is focused on get on LinkedIn and create a profile, create a resume, and go get a job.
Yeah,
which is great because everybody needs a job,
sure.
but it doesn't cover, at least in very much detail, about the American Legion, the VFW, Iraq, Afghanistan Veterans of America, the DAV, AMVETS, like all these service organizations, the VA, how to enroll in the VA, the resources at the VA, nonprofits. Like there's a ton of great nonprofits out there that can provide support, family support. What resources are out there for them? I mean, there's a ton of different things. They're just not covered that should be. And unfortunately, most of the transition process is sit down, pay attention, create a profile and a resume, and good luck.
Oh yeah,
That's
have a
most of what
nice
it is.
life.
Yep, pretty much. And
Yeah,
luckily
like
for
when I
me,
got
when I
out, I
got
didn't
out,
even realize. We didn't even realize until 3 years ago that my DDT 14 is wrong. And now they pretty much told me that you got a snowball's chance in hell of getting it fixed. So, I mean, if I didn't have my flight records, I wouldn't be allowed to say I was aircrew. Because they
yeah,
omitted
well,
all of that off of my DDT 14.
yeah, did you get back far
And
enough? I know there was a records fire in St. Louis, a big record center. I know a lot of vets I've talked to who've lost records there because that's the only place they had the records. Back in the
yeah,
day, things weren't digitalized. Um, my stepdad had told me when I got out, he was a Vietnam veteran. He said, first things first, take your DD-214, take it to the county and have it recorded. That way it's on record, recorded and scanned at the county. The county courthouse will do that for you for free. Then it's stamped and recorded with the government. I was like, okay. He goes, second thing, go to the local VA clinic and talk to the VSO. And start the process with the VA.
yeah.
But if it wasn't for him, I could have fallen in that same boat of like, now what do I do? I mean, might not have gone down that path. Who knows? That's why,
Oh, right.
a lot of guys don't. I was just talking to somebody earlier today that came up with the stat. I don't know where he got this, but something like, when you look at suicide rates within our veteran community, something like 70% of those suicides are veterans who are not connected in any way, shape, or form to the VA. That's a
Or any other org.
or any other organization, and that's a very, very sobering statistic. That's like, okay, wow, it's even if the numbers anywhere near that, higher, lower, whatever, it's like, okay, that's a place to start.
Oh yeah.
That's where we start making a change. So yeah, there's a lot of things that just aren't taught in that process that need to be covered.
Yeah, I got lucky enough to have a couple of guys I serve with this year show up. Geez, haven't seen him for 30 years, but a few guys have wandered through the house now in the last couple of months, been able to do some dinner and have a couple of cocktails and whatever. And one of them was talking about his uncle. Is it his uncle or his stepfather? I forget. But they didn't know about the DAV either. And I'm like, how is that possible? We're all on Facebook and this and that and everything else, and nobody knows anything. So it's just crazy.
It's a good point.
And then like
It's a good point. It's all right there in front of us, but we don't know anything.
Right. And like for me, my records were trashed. DD 214's wrong, this, that, you name it. And I find out that, my hearing, my headaches, my this, my that, tinnitus, blah, 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 should be covered in some way, shape, or form. I didn't know I could go after it 30 years ago, much less 4 years ago. And now that I'm trying, it's all put, if your records are trashed, it's all put on you to prove it. So without battle buddy statements, there is pretty much no way to prove it. And that was another thing they didn't know about was the battle buddy statements. And I was explaining to them, and of course they're like, well, nobody's left. He's the last guy in his unit. I'm like, well, the other version of a battle buddy statement is anybody who knew you when you got out, prior to you going in, and over the last 20, 30, 40 years, what changes have they seen? And all of that can be documented and used as well, which is something most guys aren't thinking about, because your family and friends are also your battle buddies. They're the ones that dealt with you even more after you got out versus when you were in.
Your spouse could be a huge person to get a letter from, especially if you were married to them when you were in service or right around that time period, because they have, firsthand everyday experience with you. They're a great person to get a letter from.
Or at the very least, you bring them to every single meeting, every single doc visit, every VA visit. You got to bring them to everything, because you're not going to tell your doctor what he wants to hear. You're going to tell him what you want him to know. And then you're going to get smacked in the back of the head by the spouse. And no. You wake up at least 3 times a week screaming and yelling and telling people to fuck off and whatever,
Or your snoring's a little bit worse than that, or,
right.
whatever.
Exactly. Whatever it is, but you're not going to say what it is,
It's not like a little saw. It's a freaking chainsaw or yep.
With a 2-stroke motor attached that should be at the MotoGP.
Yeah, with a straight pipe on it. Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. Yeah, this spouse can definitely offer perspective that you just can't do. So, I know I've gone through that. My wife has written, letters for me on my last couple claims, just because, 13 years together, she sees things from a different perspective, especially when it, comes to, well, kind of joking about snoring, but like sleeping habits and stuff like that. Like, obviously your sleep, you don't know how much you snore. You don't know how your sleep patterns are or how long you sleep, those kind of things. So it is important, or how you react to things or things. So or maybe adult kids, if your kids are old enough to write that statement. I don't think they're going to take statements from 10-year-olds or 15-year-olds, but those people that are close to you. So, what, is there anything in specific on your records that has been wrong, or what kind of hurdles have you had with the VA trying to correct that, or have you had any success trying to fight with them?
It's my 4th go around, and I've had 0 success with even tinnitus. So, and part of it is because I was, my DD-14 doesn't say I was a crew chief. Doesn't say I have flight hours. It doesn't have anything. So even though I'm submitting my flight syllabus, trying to upload it, they don't want to read it. I've been to a doc, forgot what the exam is called, but basically they hook you up to like an oscilloscope and they test how fast your nerve response is. And based off of that response, they flat out said it's from exposure to either jet fuel, hydraulic fluid, grease, this, that, whatever. It's just completely 100% stamped. It's right there. Where the back quack I was going to, after a while, he said, you're really going to want to go get this test done because I'm starting to think it's not your spine. You got other issues going on. So went and had that test done, submitted that, and they said, nope. There's no reason that could have been from the core. So waiting in jet fuel inside of a sponson while you're trying to change the poppet valves and other things out, that was standard for us. Just get your ass in there and get it done. Because if you can reach the bottom of the tank without getting your face in it, you can breathe. Just get in that thing and make it happen. And that's what we always did. So, and then you'd be wearing your boots that were fuel soaked for the next 6 months. So your room smelled like fuel. You smelled like fuel. That was just normal. Every time we ate, if we got a cheeseburger or something, you had fingerprints on it from grease and oil and whatever. That was just how we did things back when. Nobody had gloves. They didn't have that special sauce for your hands, protective layer stuff. I didn't see that until like the year 2000. I was like, what is this shit? That would have been cool to have.
Yes, the special orange soap with all the grit in it to clean it off. Yeah.
I mean, it was just, I wouldn't change any of it. It made me who I am today, which I'm way better off than I would have been had I not gone in. So I can't complain there.
Definitely frustrating though, to have those challenges, but
yeah, because my record book looks like it was whitewashed. So you can see a couple of words on a few pages here and there. They can find the keywords like hearing loss, headaches, this, that, they find all these keywords, back problems, whatever, but because the context is missing, they just deny you. So piece by piece, I'm just trying to get buddy statements together, this, that, and I'm trying to make it even easier on other guys, which I'm like doing the generic format for, all right, tinnitus. Here's a CH53, crew chief mechanic. And, because, our barracks were sometimes in California, if they were taxiing on the, I forgot which side of the base that would be on, the north side, your barracks door could be 20 feet from the frickin' flight line.
It's a little close.
Yeah. So, and, if you were on the flight line, you had to wear ears. But if you were in your barracks, you didn't. But what was the difference?
That wall just makes a huge difference for your hearing.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, just like the medical tests, I'm assuming your DD-214 kind of pretty much, I'm assuming it shows, if it doesn't have the aircrew stuff on there, I'm assuming it kind of shows grunt type activities or something so if there's a medical records to show like you only get these kind of illnesses or issues from exposure to fuel and oil, like you don't get that being a grunt or other career fields. Like you only get that if you're a fuel technician or a mechanic or like you only get that. You only get that certain ways. You don't get that sitting in an office desk or an MP or a firefighter or, there's probably only 5 jobs that you could get exposure to that. So unfortunately,
we were also I've got my patch for being a shit burner. There's the 55-gallon buckets. There's all the other buckets. Go fill them up, pour some diesel on there, get it started. And you got your stir stick. And, back then you were just out there as you were while smoking a cigarette, stirring somebody's shit while you're burning it. And that was normal. And when it was time to bail from that base, a lot of times you'd wind up burning a lot of records too, because they didn't want to bring them back because it wasn't digitized and nobody wanted to transcribe that shit. So, but back then it didn't mean anything to us because we didn't know any better. So now that you look back on what you were doing, then you're like, we were just fucking ourselves over.
Now it's very much like the burn pits over the last 20 years of like, why did we just put everything into a giant pit, like dump jet fuel on it and light it on fire? Like whose
Because
bright
it was
idea
easy.
was I mean, yeah, it was easy and the contractors could get away with it, but and they're still operating them. So they're still allowed to operate them in certain places. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. That's why it's important to I think it's great over the last probably 10, 15 years as we have more platforms like podcasts and YouTube and social media where people can talk about these things and we can tell other people that are, especially those that are still serving, look around your environment, see what you're exposed to, go to the doctor, document everything, and then make sure that you check those records over and get everything you can in there, because you don't know, it could be a year after you get out, it could be 20 or 30 years later down the road. You want to make sure that you have every record that you got so that you're not having to run into issues with the fight.
Oh yeah, because they're just going to make it worse and worse and worse. Because I mean, it's the VA is there to help you only if they deem it necessary. So
Yeah.
until they deem it necessary to help you, you have to help yourself.
Yep. It's the government. There's bureaucracy, there's red tape. It's a process, and you have to figure out how to navigate that process. But they're definitely not going to put an express lane in for you to navigate it.
Right, right.
They're not giving
And
you
you
GPS. They're going to give you MapQuest to
and you
try to figure
really
it
don't
out.
want to get a lawyer if you don't have to, because then whatever you have coming to you, they're going to eat most of it.
I think, in my personal opinion, that's like the nuclear option.
Oh
It can
yeah,
be
that's your
effective. They
that's your
can do
last
it.
ditch.
Yeah, that's definitely try the service organizations, your county VSO, whatever. Try those options first. But everybody gets to a certain point where it's like, hey, I've had enough fighting this. Give it up. You know, if you want to
And a
cough
lot
up
of the county
X amount.
VSOs are DAV approved as well, so they can help you out even more than you think.
Yeah, there's a lot of great ones out there. Just give it a shot. See what happens. You know, sit down and
Yeah,
talk to them, interview them.
if your current county doesn't have one, just go to the next county over, because if your county don't have one, they'll help you.
Yep, there's definitely somebody out there for it. So, any other issues that you've experienced going through transition, or any other advice that you have for anybody who's going through either transition now, or anybody else might be in your shoes that got out 20, 30 years ago and might be looking at, hey, I'm going to dust off these records and put in a claim.
Hey, do it as soon as do it today. I mean, if you got to take PTO to get it done, get it done. Make sure your spouse is involved and anybody you possibly can get a hold of. Hit all the groups on Facebook so you've got battle buddies lined up, because Facebook is a great tool for connecting. And generally, that's what a lot of us just use it for. There's no other platform out there that there's as many guys. So we found a bunch of guys through other guys, back channeling Facebook, and we call it hate book, but it's the same thing. So, but yeah, I would find every resource you can and just start today, because it's an uphill battle, and it's probably harder than the time you served, and more frustrating because you know what happened and you have to prove it to some jackass who has never met you, never seen you, and doesn't give a shit about you.
Right. And you're trying to articulate that through a medical doctor's opinions, written statements of yours, your spouse, battle buddies, whatever. It's they're just taking it off of paper. You're not getting to plead your case to the actual reviewer. You get to the medical doctor. But there's somebody sitting in a cold, dark government building somewhere in a corner, probably with no window in their office, sitting there just eventually 6 months from now, opening up your file and reading through it and saying, well, I either agree or I don't agree. And here's what
Oh
we're going
yeah.
to do for this
And then,
person.
yeah, I mean, 10 years after I got out was when I found out they pulled the wrong teeth. So my impacted wisdom teeth were left in my head. My good ones were yanked because that was the easy thing to do, but they marked that they pulled the impacted ones. So after a few x-rays later, out in the civilian world, I've got a dentist sitting there, in the old school x-rays, sticking them up on the board, turning it one way, turning it back the other way. And he looks at me and he goes, "Did you get your wisdom teeth pulled?" And I says, "Yeah, my right side." And he goes, "No, your left side's missing, but your right side are still there. But your records say this." So, and then they were so bad after 10 years, maybe 8 years ago, I finally had to have one pulled because they were so bad, nobody would touch them until they had to get pulled. But I wound up on a PIC line and all kinds of other shit because of this thing, like 40 grand in the hole, all because they pulled the wrong freaking teeth.
Oh my goodness.
So, I mean, but again, like you said, you don't know until you know. And it's so many years later, you're just screwed.
Yeah. And you're at the whim of somebody's record keeping back 30 years ago. And, does somebody want to do their job right? Maybe they do their job right, but they keep the records wrong, or they don't do the job right and fudge the records, or maybe somebody just doesn't care. Like when I was in, getting the anthrax vaccine was a huge thing. You had to have it to go overseas. It was like a series of 7 shots. Typically, you obviously get them in a series of 1 through 7. I think I got like 8 shots total, and they definitely did not go in series of 1 through 7. It was like 1 and then 2 and then 3. And then I got overseas and they're like, what was your last shot? And I said, I don't know. There's my medical records. And they were looking at it, and I don't know if somebody goofed it up, and they're like, well, we don't have that next series number, so we're just going to give you this one instead. And so like the numbers are all over the place. It was like 1, 2, 3, 6, 3, 7, 4. Like they're like, it doesn't matter. It's all good. And I'm like, okay, sure, yeah.
As long as you got them all,
or extra,
or a total of.
Whatever. If my arm falls off at some point in time, that might explain why. Or
but you won't be able to claim it.
Probably not. Nope. So it's, weird things happen. I'm sure there's a million other stories out there like that. So, but hey, it's all part of the journey. We all transition out. We all have those problems, but life goes on. You go on, you do other things in your life, and you had a passion for some cooking and making your own spices. And eventually you had some ideas to turn that into a business. So your business is obviously Corspice. I've had to scroll across the bottom there, and it's in the show notes for people to go to it. But tell us the backstory on the business and the idea behind it.
So I always had like 2 or 3 blends always in the cupboard, always ready to go. And almost every time anybody come over for a barbecue, at the end of the night, they'd want to take some home, be it was leftovers or some of the seasonings. And that went on for 10, 20 years, whatever it was. And my son's godfather, one of my oldest friends, was here spending some time with us as well. And we were cleaning up the kitchen, and he was on the other side of the bar having a couple. And he slams his hands on the table. He's like, "That's it. You're not giving this shit away anymore." Because I had already sent people home with a few bottles and baggies and whatever. And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "We're going to start this as a business." And I was like, "Sure. We've had a few cocktails. Let's talk about this." And I kind of just, yeah, whatever. But in the morning, he was still serious. So that entire day with the wife and him and, everybody in the house, we just kind of mulled the ideas over, came up with the name Corspice, and we wanted the pinup girl as a logo, so to speak. We already had a few blends that we knew were rock solid. And then we started off with 3, and now we're up to 7. We alternate with an 8th one with our fish because it's not a heavy hitter, but the ones that love it. But it's our most expensive blend also, so we can't do it all the time. But
awesome. So when you come out with something new, I know I've asked you this one before when we talked, but I'm assuming the research and development side of this must get very interesting, creating new blends. It you
Well,
know,
so it's really hard. I think the hardest thing is that the wife has certain tastes. I have certain tastes. The kids have certain tastes. Everybody that stops in has certain tastes. And when you taste something dry, not cooked, it can be totally different. So like if
of
you
course,
try
yeah.
and cook with, if you just a big example, cook something with wasabi powder. If you cook with it, it disappears. It's gone, absolutely gone. But if you use it after you've cooked, you got some nice spice. That's why it's only in that little clump in the corner of your sushi tray. Because if they actually cooked with it, it's gone. So
Interesting.
learning all those weird nuances of what stays, what hides, what comes out in the front of other things, even though there's barely any there. How can you make the objective was how to do a dry rub, seasoning blend, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same stuff. I want you to be able to cook a steak at home, and as long as you don't burn it, it should be as good or better than if you went out for a steak. So those are always the kind of what we're thinking. Like, how do you get somebody that's not a good chef to be able to chef at home, make it easy, make it simple, have a great flavor, no added sugar, no MSG, none of the crap in it, and you want them to come back for more.
Yeah.
So, and
I,
all of our blends are made to be used individually, or we layer them all the time. So there's, eventually I'm going to put out a chart on which layer goes with which one and how you can line them all up differently. And
oh, that'd be
I
cool.
just haven't sorted that one out in my head yet, because it's in my head. I just have to figure out how to pull it out.
I'm sure at some point in time, though, over time, I'm sure you've had some, I guess I'll call them failures, where you've probably made a blend and you've tried it, and like, I don't think this isn't gonna work. Probably nobody's gonna buy
Oh,
this.
there's probably over 100 initial test runs that nobody else has even sampled, because they just go straight in the trash. I'm not
Uh,
even willing to try and cook with them if they're that far off. Because
how,
there's some other ones where you're hesitant, but you're like, it's got something there, and you'll cook with it and go, all right, so it went this way, you were expecting it to go another way. How do you bring it in line where you want it to go? Or it'll send you off on a whole different tangent, which is also fun, because we got like 15 more in queue that we want to roll out. I mean, one of them's just a plain Jane chili blend, so that you could just put 2 tablespoons in your pot and add a little more if you want a little more flavor or not. But we've validated that one probably over 100 times now, and it's insanely consistent. And whether we do it with ground beef, ground turkey, ground chicken, steak, combinations thereof, venison, whatever, it's still pretty damn consistent. And now, you don't have to be a layered chili expert to make something that everybody at home wants to have a bowl of. So the same scenario, it's just one of those ones that we haven't got there yet.
oh, it sounds like you're pretty close. At least closer than trying something and being like, yeah, this is just definitely not gonna gonna work. I can only imagine just, you know, trying something and putting something on a piece of chicken and taking one bite and just being like, nope, nope,
Oh,
nope.
we
Yeah.
usually don't even make it to the cooking phase, and you're like, absolutely not. We're not even going to try that. That's bad.
And I'm very, very curious. How do you even know at that point? Like you just putting all the dry spices together and you're just kind of like smelling it and you're just like, this just doesn't work.
Well,
Or you're
like
tasting it,
the
or I
the
mean,
latest one we rolled out, little heat, little sweet. Not that it'll even show up, but um, we wanted something specifically for wings. We were targeting wings, and as it turns out, it's great on steak. It's great on salmon, on a lot of other stuff. It's great on pork as well. But when we do wings on a smoker, and we're using a pellet smoker, My son came up with it. You just throw the wings on for like 40 minutes at 250, pull them off, and you put them on frozen. Pull them off, crank the thing up to 500 or as hot as you can get it. Put all the wings in a bowl. Just lightly dust them with your favorite wing sauce. Doesn't have to be an actual wing sauce. Could be barbecue sauce, whatever. But just to give them a coating. And if you don't want that, you could use just use a little bit of olive oil just to give them something to let the seasoning stick to. And then we'll hit them with little heat, little sweet, which is honey based for the sweet side. And then it's got a bunch of other stuff in it for the heat side. But we'll metal that all together, let it sit while the grill comes up to temp, and then throw them back on just to get them a little crispy. Pull them off and then dip them however you want in any sauce you want, and or eat them straight. And we did that one. I had 3 variants of it, and we had I don't remember what the party was, but I had enough wings to do like 30 of each blend, and let everybody sample them out. And hands down, everybody picked little heat, little sweet, whether or not they had sauce on it as well. So, and then one of the other blends turned out to be, we haven't released it yet, but it's just very citrus based. We call it garlic citrus burst right now. We're not sure that we're going to keep that name, but it's phenomenal.
Sounds good,
I made
sounds like it'd be good on wings.
So not just that, we did a pork roast on Christmas, along with a couple of ribeye roasts, and strangely enough, the pork roast went first. Which
interesting.
I was not expecting that at all. I didn't even get but the first little sliver when I was carving it to taste it. It was just, by the time the plate came back around in the kitchen, it was empty. So I said, well, now we know that one's got to get sold.
There you go. No, that sounds really good. So, man, yeah, you've got some. I've looked at what you've got out there right now, and you said you have like 15 other ones that you're thinking about bringing to market.
Yeah, we need to come up with names. We got to get pricing on it. And, each blend is not cheap to roll out the first time. So, and then you got to store it, you got to sell it.
Of course, yeah.
It's just shipping's a killer now. Trying to get bottles right now is a little difficult. So like our lids and our bottles aren't always the same anymore, just because they're the same size and generic shape, but they're not always the same anymore because you just get what you get. Because we're still having that trouble with getting things around here.
That makes sense. I mean, yeah, it's been, I think, that way for a lot of people for the last couple of years. So what kind of advice do you have for somebody who's looking to start up any kind of business, with hurdles like that, to just deal with things, knowing that they're going to have problems with supply chain and things like that, as they scale up and grow?
Well, being as I was in manufacturing for the last 20, 30 years, it makes it a little easier for me to think about things like that, where the wife never really had to. She knows how to run a business, that's for sure. If I was actually running the business, we'd be out of business, because I would have spent all our money on stupid shit because it's cool. No, everybody will like this. And she's like, no, that's not how you work a business. So after the first year, we finally took the gloves off and shook hands and said, okay, I'm the spice master. You're the business master. So all advertising, all strategies, everything goes through her. And that's the biggest thing I could say is know your place in your business, and don't be upset that you're not good at everything. Excel what you're good at, and find a partner that can excel at the places you don't, and be good with that, and let them shine as well. Because if you don't, you just keep crushing yourself and the other, whoever it is, be it a spouse or a partner or whatever. So it's just like I said, the business side just doesn't make sense to me. But I can grab 50 different blends of stuff and come up with all kinds of crazy stuff because it's creative. I don't have a business brain. I don't have it at work either, at my day job. You know, I'm in IT. I write code. I play with databases, automation on machines, you know, that kind of stuff. It's all creative work. But when we go and sit down at the manager's meeting and I have to listen to all of that jargon about the whole month's worth of bills and BS and whatever, you know, it's a snooze fest. And I know what an ROI is, but I don't care about it because I got work to do. Can I go back to work? I don't want to sit here and talk.
Let me just go back to my lines of code, right?
So,
yeah, no, that
right,
makes sense. I
right.
mean,
And they don't argue.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, everybody does need to know, everybody needs to reflect on what their skills are. Like I've seen, like my wife and I are kind of the same way. Like we both know we have our own businesses, but like we both know like what our individual skills are. You know, you just have to know what they are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. I know, I'm good at certain things and I'm terrible at other things. So
Sure.
that's some great advice, and I think the faster you learn that, the better. But it takes a lot of self-reflection and awareness to
Yeah. And that's a
and
big one.
honesty to be like, okay, I'm really just not good at this. Like I'm not good at the business side, or I'm not good at the creative side. I need to find somebody to do that side of it and take this over.
Yeah. I would say if we'd tried this 20 years ago, we'd have failed, and maybe the marriage would have failed too, just because of the problems that it induces. And they're not problems; they can all be worked through. But when you've got that passion and you don't have self reflection, it is very, very difficult to step back and say, "Okay, I'm wrong," or "I don't agree, but do it anyway." So
Yeah, absolutely.
it's very. I mean, that to me that was the biggest thing we did. And then now that when we go to work shows and farmers markets, whatever, we actually have a blast when we get to work together. So a lot of our best times lately are now we're actually out working, but we're having a blast while we're doing it. We're actually looking at trying to get our food license so that we can do sampling and some other stuff, because we're even toying with the idea of doing a Corspice food truck,
Oh, there you go.
which everybody we throw the idea at's on board with it too, because the big thing is we had lacrosse players, volleyball players, whatever, all the kids doing things, and everywhere you go for tournaments, every show you go to where there's food trucks, it's always the same thing. It's the guy with the burgers, it's the smokehouse guy, it's the pierogi guy, and then maybe there's two or three of those each. But there's no place to get a good salad. There's no place to get a good chicken sandwich. I mean, there's no freshness at any event. So, and that's what we would like to do, and do it with Corspice, obviously. And we think it'd be a winner, but something we haven't done before. So we got some kinks to work out. That's for sure.
Of course. Well, that's part of the journey. That's part of the joy of it, figuring it out. So,
Yeah.
The beauty of it is, I mean, obviously you said you're the creative side of it and your wife's the business side of it. So, you just got to put your two heads together and figure it out. And then, figure out where it goes. But one other thing I wanted to point out and ask you about is, you're also, through your business, you're supporting some veteran organization like Canines for Vets. Is that correct? You've done some things there. So tell us a little bit about more what you've done there.
So we usually pick currently it's Canine for Vets. We came out with a hot sauce just for them. And then we do, I think it's like 40% of that goes directly to them for the bottle. So it's a bottle we drag around and sell, but we don't really make anything on it. It's one we're just doing to get them a big donation. And then, a percentage of all of our sales goes back to them. Last year around, I want to say right before Thanksgiving, we did at a brewery, we did a show specifically for them to raise money for them. And we managed to get enough to sponsor a dog for a veteran for a year. So that was pretty cool. So now we're probably a dog and a half, 2.5 dogs in with them being able to sponsor. And being able to go to the facility and see how they do things and how the veterans react and everything's pretty cool as well. Amber's got a couple other veteran organizations in the works now coming down the pipe. We're looking at some different hot sauces, and it's going to be pretty cool this year, I think, when things start rolling summertime.
That's awesome. That's huge to be able to sponsor a couple of dogs for some guys, because you just don't know how much of an impact that can be on their lives, their spouse, their kids, for the next 10, 15 years. For
yeah.
them.
And
So,
then
it's huge what you've done. You and all your followers and customers to be able to support that. So that's awesome.
yeah, they're fantastic. They come find us at shows now, which is kind of cool. We have kind of a following, and we'll hear from other people. We have 2 buildings at work, and I was in the one building, our secondary building, and I happen to have my Corspice coffee mug with me. And the one purchasing lady goes, "Oh, wow, those guys are really cool. I like their stuff." And I'm like, "Thank you." And she's kind of gave me a weird look like, "What do you mean, thank you?" I'm like, "Well, that's my company." She's like, "Really?" So she had bought some stuff and then bought more of it to send to some people in Canada. We've sold stuff as far as Guam. So that's our farthest delivery so far.
Nice.
So
well, who knows? Who knows who will listen to that? Maybe we can change that.
Right.
We'll consider that a challenge. So
always.
What could be farther than Guam? All right. Anybody in England, Europe, it's okay. Let's challenge that. So if you know somebody and you're listening, tag your friends overseas. So.
Oh yeah.
But no, that's awesome. I look forward to seeing what you guys roll out. Not only products, but any other organizations you guys are supporting. So I love that when another veteran-owned business finds a way to benefit another a veteran nonprofit in some way and help veterans. I mean, that's what we got to do. We got to find ways to take care of our own, and that's just one nice, clever way that we're taking care of ourselves in a business and ourselves and our families financially, but also using that as a way to take care of our veteran families too. So that's always great.
Yeah, and really pay attention because like Grunt Style, cool stuff, but they're no longer veteran owned and everybody still thinks they are. So if you don't pay attention to who you're supporting, you're not positive anymore. And they'll play with the words, because now they support veterans instead of being veteran owned. So where the tagline used to be, Yeti is made overseas, but it's engineered in Texas. Still good shit, but you're not really supporting a worker in Texas anymore. And I've got plenty of Yeti stuff because it's good shit. But really look at what you're doing, including when you're doing a donation. Who's it really going to, and how does it actually support somebody at the bottom, which is who you're trying to support. So sometimes it might even be easier to just go to your local VFW and help out there.
Yeah, it definitely helps to research the companies and, shop local, especially,
Oh yeah.
If it's local and you know them, share their content, follow them on social, share that, and get those local sales where people know it's local. That way, not saying not buy from big name, national brands, because, hey, there's a bunch of great companies there too. But, when it's local, the people, there's local impact, it's beneficial there too. So, but Bill, I appreciate you coming on here and sharing with us about your company and transition. I think there's a lot of great nuggets that we've, great pun on food reference there, nuggets. But sharing with us about your company and your transition issues and whatnot, I think there's a lot of valuable stuff there for anybody going through that or looking to start a business. And if anybody's interested in spices, I got that scrolling across the bottom. I'll have the link in the show notes. If anybody's interested in it, go shop there. Definitely go check it out. Whatever spice, whenever you happen to be listening to this or watching it, go check it out and go think about purchasing whatever spice or hot sauce, whatever you got that's supporting a veteran nonprofit. So anything else to add, Bill?
No, hit us up at corspice.com and we got everything from hot to not. So check it out.
Yeah, yeah, you got some. I'm not much of a spice person, hot flavor stuff. So some of your stuff on there looks really good to me, like the taco stuff. I'm kind of a taco connoisseur, so that's that's what looks good to me. I could eat tacos all day, every day. But yeah, you definitely have some delicious looking stuff on the site. So
Appreciate it.
everybody should go check it out. Thanks for stopping by and sharing with us.
Thanks for having me, Keith.
Yep. All right, take it easy, Bill.
You too.
There you have it, folks. I hope you enjoyed. Remember, there's all kinds of resources on the website, so make sure you go check that out. If there's something not on there you think should be on there, please let us know. Send us an email. Let us know what you think should be on there. And if you're struggling for any reason, remember the suicide hotline number is 988 press 1. Remember, we want you here tomorrow, battle buddies. It's important. We want you here tomorrow. You can also text 838-255.